almost every year there's been kind of building this muscle of shared solidarity and kind of shared political power analysis in Minnesota too.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Right now, we have on Isabella and Amy, right?
Yes, indeed, we do have them on.
Fantastic. So I am really excited about this. I found this article a long time after it it came out. It's like how old is this? Let me pull up the article. Actually, it's October 31st. So it is. Okay, I'm only a month behind. I was thinking it had been longer than that. But it's a really great article. What could we win together? Labor in Minnesota gears up for a major escalation. And it's an article about how labor unions in Minnesota have already been on the ball about aligning contract expirations so that they all expire at the same time, and theoretically they could all strike at the same time. This is the call that UAW President Shawn Fain has put out to the entire labor movement, and unions in Minnesota have already started doing that. And so Isabella Escalona and Amy Stagger they've written an article about that, and really excited to talk to them about it. Amy, Isabella, welcome to the program. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Really looking forward to the conversation, and really appreciate your work on this. This is, like I said, a really great article. It's in these times. Folks should check it out. But just start us off with kind of the top line. There's a bunch of contracts expiring over the next year. What are they?
I can start us off. So in Minnesota, there is a pretty thriving labor movement. There's a lot of unions and worker centers, renters groups, and over the last decade or so, they've been coordinating their efforts to have a shared general kind of expiration timeline. So we're seeing in the next few months, or maybe they've already some of them have already expired. For example, the SEIU Local 26 has 4,000 commercial janitorial workers expiring at the very end of the year. There's another 1,000 airport workers, 500 retail janitorial workers, both in the end of January. And then there's also 2,500 security workers at the end of February. Along with that, we have Metro Transit bus drivers and bus operators, train operators. They had a contract expiring in the summer and are currently negotiating and authorized a strike a few months ago. And then Amy could speak to this a bit more, but we also have the MFT and SPFE, which are the two teachers unions who also have upcoming expirations.
Do you know what the total number of workers under these contracts that have been aligned are?
Yeah, we've been told that it's around kind of a range of like 20,000 to 30,000. There are a lot of public school teachers that in Minneapolis who went on strike, but in addition to the Minneapolis public school teachers, the St. Paul public school teachers are also, their contracts also expired earlier this year around June. And they're still operating under the Pella Public Employment Labor Relations Act, but they are currently negotiating as well. So yeah, 20,000, 30,000, I think is kind of a range of workers.
That's a pretty significant piece of the economy over there. How long has this been in the works? When did they start? When did all these unions start thinking about and working towards aligning all of these contract expirations so that they expire around the same time? And what got that started?
Yeah, I could jump in here. So we would say about a decade. It's hard to put an exact date on it, just because some of these have been like less, more informal collaborations. But previous to working as a reporter, I was working at a worker center in Minneapolis, and I've kind of been in this world for at least about like 4 or 5 years now. And every single year, these kind of groups of unions have either 1 or 2 weeks of action. So they're almost like mini versions of what's going on now, where they coordinate around maybe a shared target, or maybe a few different contract expirations, or maybe a different group is having a march. So they kind of share, May Day is one of the dates that I'd seen that before happen. So every year there's almost like a mini collaboration build up to this moment. So I'd say a decade, but I would say almost every year there's been kind of building this muscle of shared solidarity and kind of shared political power analysis in Minnesota too.
Gotcha. And Amy, what is there a documented reason why they started trying to do this, trying to, build solidarity, between unions and then specifically the goal of aligning the contracts?
Yeah. So what's very evident, we can't trace it to like a certain document or point in time, but what's very evident is that there has been a power struggle in the state of Minnesota going on for ever. And currently, there's a lot of unrestrained corporate and private power that is influencing how Minnesotans live and work, powerful entities reaching their tentacles into every part of Minnesotans' lives, from kids' learning conditions at the schools to pollution of neighborhoods to abuse in the construction industry, and even lack of holiday pay and leisure time to enjoy time away from work. And so the unions and workers are very focused on sort of educating the public on these powerful entities that are, increasingly unrestrained in their power and control over our lives.
And is there any like specific value to the coordinated contracts beyond, the obvious? More is better, right? That's the whole kind of idea behind unions. When we come together, we're more powerful in one workplace, and thus it makes sense to say that in a geographic region, when more unions come together, we're more powerful. But I'm wondering if there are like businesses or organization, in the supply chain where a strike by a different set of workers would still have an impact on them, or maybe, they have one owner. Are there any dynamics like that?
Oh yeah, definitely. One of the powerful groups discussed by unions and workers was the Minnesota Business Partnership, which consists of executives from over 100 companies and multinational conglomerates headquartered in the state. Minnesota has at least, I think, 15 Fortune 500 companies headquartered here. And 4 of the companies that were mentioned were General Mills, which is a consistent leader within the Minnesota Business Partnership and raises money for schools with its Box Tops for Education program while lending financial support to charter schools. So we can see how private power is influencing against public education. And then another company that was mentioned was Ameriprise Financial, a wealth management company headquartered in downtown Minneapolis that manages working people's savings for retirement through pension funds. And the rise in subcontracting in the 1980s eliminated pensions for many of the janitors who work cleaning the corporate offices there. Another company that was mentioned was U.S. Bank, which is a longtime partner of Dominium, which is a housing developer and opponent of rent stabilization, which has also been a fight here in the cities. And workers are also saying, too, that corporations should be paying their fair share of environmental impacts. They talked about 3M company, which has faced litigation for its role in disposing forever chemicals into the environments around here. And so, they're hoping that, collective action and solidarity with their community is, part of this broader strategy of, bargaining for the public good, not only to improve their members' working conditions, but to fight for a structural change within their communities.
Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
This event that we went to back in October, where there were thousands of these union members all together in one space, really it was around 4 pillars. So better, livable, family sustaining jobs, cleaner environment, affordable, truly affordable housing, and good schools. So something, some of these groups will see is, if you fight for one, very quickly you see it getting pit against each other. So one place you see this is in construction and housing development. So this is a new article that we just came out with at Workday Magazine, is that this idea that, if you want affordable housing, it's going to have to be on the backs of construction workers, and we're going to have to just underpay or not go union or have these, unfair labor practices or, sub-minimum wage, whatever the case may be. So by uniting these causes and at least having that shared analysis, there's, less room to pit these movements against each other. We also see that with the environment and worker protections. We see that with schools and jobs. When teachers go on strike, teachers are seen as, hurting the school or whatever the case may be. So really trying to get ahead of that and sort of make sure that these movements and these different fights aren't being pit against each other. And, a lot of these movements, I would say a lot of these different unions have specific ways that is impacting them.
Yeah. Can you talk about some of those specific ways with one or two of those groups of workers?
Yeah, I can talk about the teachers, some things that they are fighting for, pay increases, full service community schools, better mental health support, a commitment to strong schools and ending a decline in enrollment that they've seen. Teachers have also been organizing outside of that for green technology in their schools, solarization and electric buses. We know too that like a lot of times, the Minnesotans have been also experiencing the effects of climate change, including record snowfall, drought, poor air quality, and temperatures so high that, the Twin Cities Marathon has to be canceled. We deal with a lot of snow days here in Minnesota, but when it's too hot, kids and teachers and all sorts of school workers can't, work in their ideal conditions, and so it's unsafe for them there. So that's something that teachers have been fighting for as well.
Right. Have you been able to talk to any of these folks in Minnesota about the UAW's call for contract alignments? Are they how do they feel about his announcement, and do you know if they are trying to if they're going to try to align their contracts with that May 1st, 2028. How have they reacted, and are they going to try to follow that? Isabella?
Question. I don't think at least I haven't personally spoken to any of these workers since that announcement. I will say that this event happened in early October. So in a way, Minnesota was a little bit ahead of the game in that strategy. I will also say too, being in the Minnesota labor movement, I kind of assumed everybody was already doing this. And when I spoke to other organizers outside of the state, I was like, oh, I thought like this was what all the states were doing. And, there are little hubs of cities or certain areas where there is this alignment. But I will just say I was really surprised that this wasn't, a just tactic everybody had been taking. So, I can't speak to that exact date that the UAW put out, but I do think that Minnesota's kind of already has that strategy in the works.
Well, that's great. I'm really excited to hear that, and it is in some of the analysis around his call to action, so to speak, for May the 1st, 2028, has talked about how, for a lot of unions, not only does it seem difficult for them to align their contract expiration with other unions, but even within their unions, it's and like you said, that's kind of I have been really, kind of flummoxed by some of the random assortments of contract expirations that some unions have allowed themselves to be put into. And I'm thinking specifically right now about the paper mills. I don't know if y'all have very many paper mills up in Minnesota, but the United Steelworkers represents a lot of paper mill workers, and they have at the big companies like WestRock or International Paper, they have national master agreements, and that expire at one time. But the national master agreement isn't the one with the no strike clause. It's the local agreements with the no strike clause. And the local agreements all expire. Like there's no coordination among the local agreements. It's all, evenly spaced out over the 4-year term of the contract. It's crazy. And I don't know if y'all have any reaction to that other than like, yeah, that is crazy. But it's been really frustrating to me talking to a lot of paper industry workers and feeling their frustration about especially seeing how Teamsters and the UAW have been able to leverage their leverage what they have in their industries, and it being so much more difficult in the paper industry. I mean, that really speaks to the value of this goal of contract alignment.
Totally. I think, just kind of a general reaction to that is I think that's intentional, making sure that these contracts are not aligned is, in part intentional. I mean, I can't speak to all the intricacies of labor law, but, that you also can't, strike on behalf of someone else. You can't have secondary strikes. So that in a way, plays into like, oh, you guys, can't align. Well, that's not true. You can align in some ways. Of course, being mindful of those kind of legal parameters, especially if we're talking, traditional unions. But, there's a lot of ways that these things are divided. Also, something we didn't explicitly say either, but another kind of contingent here is worker centers. So worker centers aren't under the same kind of legal restrictions or, bargaining and expiration dates. But something we are seeing in the Twin Cities right now is, non-union construction workers who are organizing with worker centers or rideshare drivers. These are also other groups who have historically not been union, have been sort of excluded from traditional bargaining. But instead, by organizing in these other forms, they're also able to kind of take advantage of this shared expiration date to do other types of actions to align their, either like events or calls for legislation or protests, whatever it may be, with this kind of early spring timeline that a lot of the unions are, because, unions and non-union workers also have been, historically pit against each other. So I would also wanted to just make sure we spoke to that, part of it too, is that worker centers and not traditionally organized labor is also a part of this.
Right. Well, Amy, Isabella, I really appreciate your time and the work that you're doing for Workday Magazine. Workday Magazine is a really cool thing that y'all have over there. I've talked to Sarah about it, and I'm incredibly jealous of what y'all have over there. Could you, I guess, make a pitch for Workday Magazine? What is it that y'all do over there, and what kind of stuff can people find?
Yeah, so Workday Magazine is, we're based in the Twin Cities in Minnesota, but we've recently, within the past year, expanded our coverage towards the broader Midwest and even national and international issues. We've written about, the intersections of the labor movement when it comes to climate and militarism. Our editor, Sarah Lazar, has been a very important part of this transition, and I love getting to work with her and Isa as well. They both bring such a wealth of knowledge and experience to what's going on in the labor movement right now, and always surprise me with how ahead of the game they are. So,
yeah. Well, Amy, Isabella, appreciate your time. Is there anything else that you want to make sure you leave folks with before we let you go?
Yeah, I just want to, shout out to the workers and unions who are celebrating and building off the momentum of the past year's wins in Minnesota, which include a lot of legislative wins, like the establishment of a nursing home workforce standards board here, driver's licenses for all, free breakfast and lunch for students across the states. It's been a very, very wonderful thing to observe and experience and kind of get like a front row seat to see. So we're very excited to be on top of this story, and hopefully more and more people will read about it and learn from them.
Yeah, I'll just add that Minnesota's a state to watch. I think that seeing that, a lot of Minnesota unions have been kind of aligning and strategizing in this really, exciting and unique way. Minnesota's a place to watch. So just hopefully follow our coverage of this as it progresses in early 2024.
All right, will do. Y'all have a good one. Thanks for your time. You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project. And you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.